So now that you have an isometric grid folded from your sheet of paper, what can you do with it? Well, one thing that you can do is you can certainly use this isometric grid to draw some shapes. So one of the things that isometric grids are really great for is for drawing three-dimensional objects like a cube. So I could use my grid here to form a cube. All right. And if you wanted to sort of dot in the invisible edges, you could do that. All right, but there's a cube. So that's one thing that you could do. Another thing that you could do is you could work with nets of certain polyhedra. So three polyhedra have equilateral triangle faces. That's the tetrahedron, the icosahedron, and the octahedron. So how many triangles would you need to form these? This would be a great exploration for students. So for example, if you were doing a tetrahedron is made up of four sides. So I could take these four equilateral triangles and I could cut this out and then fold up these three flaps, with this being the base of my tetrahedron. So then you can ask kids, well, what about if you wanted to make an octahedron? How many triangles would you need? So certainly with an octahedron or an icosahedron, you would need a lot more triangles. Well, not a lot more for the octahedron, but you would need a lot more for the icosahedron. So you could actually subdivide your isometric grid that you folded here. So to do that, you're going to take each of these vertical columns here, right? You've got four vertical columns, and fold those in half. So let's just start the process here just so you can see what will happen. I'm just folding each of those vertical columns in half. So instead of 3 vertical folds, we will have 6 vertical folds, which will divide it into 8 columns. All right. But now, since we divided our columns in half, we also need to divide these diagonal folds in half as well. So I'll start with my bottom right-hand corner and just bring it up. Again, use the folds as your guide. And then I'm going to now bring this one up. So there's a fold that we made before. Now if I bring that up to the next vertical fold, making sure everything lines up. All right. So now you have a more detailed isometric grid forming, right? And you can continue that all the way up the paper, and you can continue that all the way up the paper from the opposite direction. And that will subdivide your isometric grid into an even more detailed isometric grid. So I hope that gives you some ideas on how to use your isometric grid for 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional objects. And check back in the next video and I'll show you how to make some other objects from your isometric grid.